the breakfast was ready, we lolled on the grass and ate it. Smoking Jim took it all and with all his might, for he was almost out. But by and by I said, "How do you come here, Jim, and how did you get here?" "I run off, holy missus, that Miss Watson. She pecks on me all the time." "Jim," Hawks is telling Jim. "But mind, you wouldn't tell me, would you, Huck?" I told him I wouldn't. He told me how he had overheard Miss Watson say that she would sell him to a nigger trader. Nigger trader means, nigger means we know that a slang language that is used to describe or insult a black person is called a nigger. That word is called a nigger. And Miss Watson had a nigger named Jim. So now Miss Watson is telling that he would sell Jim to a nigger trader, means a person who trades niggers and gives money for it. So Jim was very scared that Miss Watson, if she sells me to a nigger trader, what will I do there? They would sell me, they would cut me to pieces, and they would sell them to get money. So he decided to run away because he was feared of that all the words that Mrs. Watson told. No one wants to go to a trader. He managed to get onto a raft after hiding for a day, but he had to slide off as it was someone started coming out in his direction. But he had to slide off as someone started to come in his direction with a lantern. He had to swim to the island, and luckily for him, he had matches where he didn't wet as they were in his cap. We chatted for a while longer. So Huck and Jim, they chatted for a while longer what Jim did, how he traveled from there to here, what he did, how he traveled, why he traveled. So they talked for a while longer. Huck also asked some questions and he answers all those questions, and he talked for a while. I wanted to go to the place right about the middle of the island, and I did found what I was exploring. So now Huck again, after eating the breakfast, Huck and Jim went again to explore the Jackson Island where they were. So there are two sides of the island. One side Pap was living and one side Huck was living. Now Pap doesn't know that Huck is living in the other side of the island, which is known as the Jackson Island, and they were exploring. Huck and Jim was exploring the Jackson Island now, and Huck found what he needed. For what he was exploring the island, Huck had found that. Huck had found the location, and he was going to the location of the thing he wanted. The place was tolerable steep hill or a ridge, and by we found a good big cavern in the rock. So now the place was a tolerable steep hill, means the place was very tolerable to steep. The hill was very tolerable to steep or ridge. And Huck and Jim also found a big cavern. Cavern is a type of a rock found in some hilly regions. And hilly regions means if you go to islands like Andaman or Lakshadweep, you will find these types of rocks called the cavern rocks, and they found a big cavern rock. Jim said if we had a canoe hid in a good place and all had traps in the cavern. We could rush if there anybody was coming in the island. So Jim is now very not scared, means now Jim has an idea in his mind. Now he is telling that if he has fear from Miss Watson, because Miss Watson sees him, she will sell him to a nigger trader. So now what he is doing, see, he is going to he's telling Huck that if we had a canoe, if they know our location and if they come to our location, we would hid in the canoe and go to other place so that they could not find us. Without dog means idea, means without knowing our real canoe's location, means where they have to know their all time location where they are going. Suppose here is the canoe and they are going to the right side is the Jackson Island and they have came to the Jackson Island. Now if they have a canoe, they can go from the Jackson Island to any other place if they want. And to find Jim and Huck, the other members of the family have to know their all-time location, the all-time location of the canoe to find them. He added that the little birds had said it was going to rain and we didn't want our things to get wet. Now, Huck said that the little bird had told me that it was going to rain today and we didn't, and then Huck said, and we did not want to wet our things, so we hid in the canoe among the willows. So we hid in our canoe among the willows and fetch our things to this cavern. Cavern means they are going to keep it in the cavern and hid in the canoe and build a fire to cook a dinner of fish that we had caught and build a fire so they have to make firewood to cook the dinner of the fish. They had caught a fish today and they have to cook dinner with that fish, and for that they have to build a fire. So they are telling that we have to build fire soon. Pretty soon it darkened up and began to thunder and lightning. Pretty soon, now as the birds said it was going to rain. So if rain comes, first thunder and lightning comes, then it rains. Now the clouds had darkened up the sky, grey clouds, and the thunder and lightning was the sound of thunder and lightning was shown in the picture. And suddenly it began to rain. As the bird told, it rained, and it rained like a furry. It rained like a furry too, and I had never seen the wind blow. So the river went on rising and rising for 10 or 12 days. So the rain continued for 10 to 12 days, and the river went rising and rising because the water is falling in the river and the river is rising and the water bodies are rising and rising for 10 to 12 days till at last it was over the banks, and last it was over in near the banks. The water was 3 to 4 foot deep. Now the water had come to the knees. It was so water that the water had come to 3 to 4 foot on the island. The island has land, but there is no land now. It is full of water. They could see, Huck and Jim could see rabbits and snakes and such things, and became very tame, means very scared that there are rabbits and snakes they could eat it. But not the snakes and turtles. The rich our cavern was in, it was full of them, means their cavern was full of rabbits, snakes, toads, turtles, and many animals. But that means not lions or tigers, small animals like snakes, toads, turtle, cat, then rabbit. These types of animals were full in their cave. And insects also. One night we caught a little section of a lumber raft, nice pine planks. It was 12 foot wide. One night, Jim and Huck caught a little section of a lumber in a raft. Nice pine planks, Huck is telling. It was 12 foot wide and about 15 to 16 foot long. So it was 12 foot wide and 15 to 16 foot long. Very long the thing is. And the top stood above the water 6 or 7 inches, a solid level floor. And the raft was in the water, inside the water. Another night we found 2-story farmhouse come floating by all tilted to one side. Now in another night, Huck and Jim found a 2-story farmhouse, 2 BHK farmhouse they found that is come floating by all tilted on one side, means the farmhouse is tilted because of the water and it was floating in the water. We waited till daylight. So they waited till daylight to get it through upstairs window. So Huck and Jim waited till it was daylight to get in through upstairs window. So Huck and Jim waited till daylight to get into the farmhouse and went to the upstairs window. There was lot of things lying around about one of the floor. Men's and women's clothing, means when men's and women's lived there and their clothes were lying there. There were bottles there lying, masks there lying, and 2 dirty calico dresses were lying also, and a sunbonnet and a straw hat and such other stuff. We put lot into the canoe, it might come good. They took many of the things and put it in their canoe, and they said that it might come good one of the days. Well, the days went along, means the days were going by, and the river went down between the banks again. The river went down the banks when the river came to the normal height again. And about the first thing we did was to bait one of the big hooks with a skinned rabbit and set it to catch a catfish that was big as a man, being 6 foot 2 inches long. Means the catfish was very big. It was 6 foot and 2 inches long and weighed over 200 pounds. Huck and Jim couldn't handle the catfish, of course. Just there sat and watched them rip and tear around till he drowned. Next morning, Huck said it was getting slow. Next morning, Huck wake up and said it was getting slow and dull, and I wanted to get a stirring up. And he stirred his body up some way. I did. I said, means Huck said that I did sip over the river and find out what was going on. Now Huck said he will go over the river. He will pass the river and see what was going on in the other side. Couldn't I put on some of them old things and dress up like a girl? Now Huck dressed up like a girl. So we shortened up one of the calico gown and turned up my trouser legs to my knees and got into it. Now he became a girl. He dressed as a girl and now he is rowing the canoe and going to the other side to see what is happening. I started to the Illinois sword, the sword that divided the Jackson Island and the other side of the island. That is the Illinois shore. Now they are crossing the Illinois shore using the canoe just after dark. Just after it was dark, they are crossing the Illinois shore and they are crossing the Illinois shore when it was night and dark. I started to the town from a little below and the ferry landing and drift the current fetched me to the bottom of the town. Understand? There was a light burning in the little shanty. So they saw a light burning in a little shanty. So now what is shanty? I don't know what is the meaning of shanty, but shanty means a small lantern like that. And that hadn't been lived in for a long time. I slipped up and peeped in at the window. Huck slipped up and went inside the window and saw what is happening. Peeped through the window and he was seeing what is happening. My dear, what is happening? There was a woman about 44 years old and there knitting by a candle. She was a stranger. Now Huck, who was disguised as a little girl, saw a young lady of 44 years old and she was knitting by a candle. She was a stranger for Huck because Huck didn't know who was she. Huck was getting afraid. Now I slipped up and peeped at the window. There was a woman about 44 years old and lighting a candle. She was a stranger for Huck. We had done this and I was getting afraid. Huck was now getting afraid because he did not know the lady even who was living in the cabin. There was living Pap. Why there's a lady living? Pap is also now doing a trick. Huck is thinking, but that's not a trick, that's a lady. I had come, people might know my voice and find me out. So now Huck is thinking that people will know my voice and would really find me out here. But if this woman had been in such a little town 2 days, she could tell me all I wanted to know. Huck is now thinking, if this woman has lived in this town 2 days, she could tell me everything that I need to know, and all I wanted to know. So Huck knocked at the door of the lady, of the house of the lady of the old cabin, and made up my mind I wouldn't forget I was a girl. And Huck also made his mind that I would speak like a girl, tell like a girl, do everything like a girl. I will always remember that I am a girl when I am speaking to this old lady.